Welcome to another episode 2 of Imagine the Pop, a wrestling podcast. I'm Matty B, as always, your host, and thank you for joining us. It's great to have you. And I know what you're thinking. The first weekly episode, only went up just a couple of days ago. It's too soon for another episode. Well, I've been thinking, and there's so much going on right now on the run up to WrestleMania that trying to do one episode that captures or recaps all of SmackDown and all of Raw and all of a week's worth of news, it's just not going to work. Not at the minute anyway. So for the foreseeable, for at least the next few weeks, I'm going to do one episode to recap SmackDown and then another one to recap Raw. So we've just had SmackDown just this last Friday night. It was a good one. It was a big one. There was lots of exciting things going on, lots of things to talk about. So we're going to get into it. But first, the news. So as discussed on the first episode, the way we do the news here is we split it into two different types, because the news with wrestling at the moment is so nebulous, because we like to speculate as well as having the narrative news. We like the behind the scenes. So trying to split out the two. So the first is the narrative news. And the big narrative news this week is that this coming Monday night on Raw is going to be a big one, because we're going to have the Tribal Chief, the undisputed Universal WWE Champion, the head of the table, Roman Reigns, is going to be on Raw, which is exciting because he's not on every show. So it's going to be a big deal. And he's coming to Cody Rhodes' show. So this is going to be interesting. He's coming to Kevin Owens' show. So lots of things that could happen here. Looking forward to that. And then the other big bit of narrative news is that Logan Paul is also going to be on Raw this week. And it's not just going to be Logan Paul just making an appearance, but they're going the whole hog. They're doing some cross-brand synergy. And Logan Paul is actually hosting a episode of his own podcast, The Impulsive Show, on Raw. It's a special WWE edition. Not quite sure how it's going to play out, how they're going to release it separately, if it's just a gimmick for the sake of the episode. But it's a big deal. Impulsive has millions of listeners every single week. He has a wider crew, a wider entourage on that show. Are they going to come along? And how are they going to interact with Seth Rollins? Probably The Miz as well. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. A big episode of Raw this week. So that's the narrative news. But then what's the other news? And really, the main news that's happened in the last few days since the first episode that is outside the narrative is Pat McAfee. Now, you might have seen Wade Barrett, who calls SmackDown with Michael Cole these days. He said that that's the plan for the foreseeable future, which means that Pat McAfee doesn't look like he's coming back anytime soon. For me, he was a breath of fresh air as a colour commentator. He didn't know any of the script or anything that was going to happen. He was literally the fan in all of us, just sat next to Michael Cole, reacting and just being a ball of energy and excitement. And he was fantastic on SmackDown. He was fantastic on the pay-per-views. He coined a lot of significant trademark phrases for people like Brock Lesnar, the alpha male of our species, and everything like that. So I've loved having Pat McAfee on. It's a shame that he's not there. Wade Barrett is doing a great job, but I love Pat McAfee. It'd be great to have him back on commentary. And you know what? When he goes in the ring, when he was in the ring at WrestleMania last year, he was really good. Obviously a professional athlete that's just taken the segue into wrestling and did it really well. But he's got everything. He's got the charisma, he's got the swagger, he's got the ability, and he is missed from WWE TV. So it'd be great to get him back sooner than later. But according to this news and an actual statement from Pat McAfee himself, he's no plans to come back to WWE and wrestle anytime soon. He put out a post on Twitter saying that he does have big plans and he wants to have a Hall of Fame worthy career within the WWE. But at the moment, his day job with his Pat McAfee show and the NFL work that he does and the college football stuff that he does, he's really busy. So he just doesn't have time to come back to WWE, which makes complete sense. That's where he started. He's an ex-NFL player. That's his passion, and he's worked really hard to build his brand and to build the Pat McAfee show, and it's really flying right now. So that makes complete sense. But, hopefully he'll come back soon. He was a great surprise addition to the commentary team for the Royal Rumble this year. There's nothing to say that he can't just pop up for pay-per-views every so often to just arrive and call colour commentary for a few hours and then leave again. So if his schedule works, maybe he'll be there at WrestleMania. Maybe not. He'll be sat with Michael Cole, maybe. It'd be great if he is, because he's really entertaining. But who knows? But wish him all the best with what he's doing anyway with the Pat McAfee show and everything else as well. And everybody, that's your news. Now we're going to go straight into Friday Night Smackdown as a recap. And for me, this was a really good episode that moved along a handful of really important feuds, getting ready for some really big matches at WrestleMania. And this episode really helped move things along in quite a substantial way. So let's kick off at the start, as you do, with Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes, biggest babyface right now, or so WWE would want that to be the case. I think they're very much aware that Sami and KO probably get a bit more love from the audience. And so it's no surprise that as we head into WrestleMania, they're trying to give Cody that Sami and KO rub. So Cody Rhodes came out, and quite quickly he invited out Kevin Owens. And then just as Kevin Owens got out, he then invited Sami Zayn out. And Cody tried to play intermediary. He tried to play peacemaker. He tried to get Cody tried to get KO and Sami on the same page. But what we got was just more of the same that we've been having for quite a few weeks now, where Sami kind of says the same thing about stopping the bloodline, about we don't have to be on friends again, we just have to stop the bloodline. And then KO says, I've heard it all before. Can I just go? Although, to be honest, one thing that I do want to say is, why would I ever want to partner with someone who doesn't care about friendship? And that really just hits Sami quite hard, you can see. And then Kevin Owens walks out. Then we go to a commercial break, and then we're backstage, and Kevin Owens is leaving the arena. He's walking to his car, which is a very nice car. I don't know the make of it, but it was a really nice car. You can tell Kevin Owens has been main eventing for quite a while. He's had some nice paychecks. But Sami catches up with him just before he gets in the car, and says, look, that meant a lot to me. You're absolutely right. Forgetting anything to do with the bloodline, we're brothers. I love you, and I want to be friends no matter what happens. But then KO, he still gets in the car and he still drives off, leaving Sami alone to his thoughts, knowing that he's going to face Jay in the ring later on that night. Probably going to get ambushed, probably going to get beaten. So it's quite sad, and it's quite sad that KO and Sami, they just can't make it work. Or maybe if you've been watching wrestling as long as I have, maybe you know that if this is happening at the start of the show, there's a good chance that something might happen at the end where Kevin Owens might not have left the arena or gone as far as we might think he's gone. But it's a really good, solid start to SmackDown. Cody, KO, Sami, the three biggest faces in the business, great reactions from the crowd, good promos. But then it is a wrestling show, so we come back and we go into a wrestling match. And I was really excited about this one. I saw the promo image on Twitter from WWE on Friday night trailing this match. And it was Rhea Ripley and Dominik Mysterio versus Zelina, Vega and Santos Escabar. And I'm really excited about this because Rhea Ripley is fantastic. She is the best women's wrestler in the company right now. And Zelina Vega, she is brilliant. She, for me, was one of the superstars of the PC and the Thunderdome era during COVID. So a couple of years ago, when there was no crowd and most of the wrestlers didn't know what they were doing without a crowd to interact from, there was a handful of people. There was Bayley, there was Sasha, there was Roman, there was Edge, there was Randy Orton, and there was Zelina Vega that really just stepped it up and really carried the company and carried a lot of the episodes week to week during that period. And I've always thought she's fantastic. But she's never seemed to get the momentum. She got Queen of the Ring last year, which was quite a good kudos for her, which is quite a good stamp of approval from the management. But really, aside from that, she's not really been doing much. They've now put her with Santos Escabar and his team, and so they're now a faction. And they were heels, but they've now turned face with everything going on with Dom and Rey. And so that's where this all links in. And, you know, Santos, Escobar and Rey Mysterio have been having quite a bit of respectful backwards and forwards. And even if Rey's not going to stand up to Dominik, Santos has kind of done it himself. But then Dom has been Dom and has been very disrespectful. And last week in their match, he cheated to win, and then he was very disrespectful, ripping the luchador mask that Rey had given Santos. So really good narrative and great talent in the ring. Rhea and Zelina are fantastic. Dom and Santos, really good. They can go. And it was a good match. It was quite short because we're still near the start of the episode. And to be honest, this was really just setting up the promo that came after it. But there was some really good sections from everybody, especially Zelina Vega. She had a sequence that was really, really good. And Rhea sold it really, really well. Watch the clip on YouTube if you can. It looks really good. But eventually, Rhea Ripley, she's the number 1 contender. She went an hour in the Royal Rumble from number 1 to number 30 for a reason. Riptide to Zelina Vega, gets the pin, clean win. And you pretty much expected it. She was always going to win. She wasn't going to lose momentum going into WrestleMania. So Rhea and Dom get the win. And then, of course, as has become traditional, Dom has to get a microphone and he has to call out his dad, Rey, and call him a deadbeat dad, as is happened on every episode of SmackDown and Raw for the last month. Feels like the last year. He's been saying this enough, and I know they have to pull this out till Mania. I know they do, but they need to do something new with this now. And so I'm glad that actually with this promo we did get a bit of progression. And so Rey comes out and he confronts Dom, and for the first time, Rey actually shows a bit of grit. And he faces up to Dom, and he's still good guy. He's still good dad who's not going to lay a finger on his son. But he does say, look, if there was anybody else that was as pathetic and disrespectful as you're being, I would kick their ass. So he's laying it out, and he's saying what he needs to say to his son, but he's still staying on that right side, so he doesn't, he doesn't have to get violent. But then he says, but you're my son, I love you, I'm never going to fight you, not even at WrestleMania. And so then he walks off, as we've seen time and time again. Obviously, Dom not happy. I don't know where this is getting to. They're obviously escalating this, and they really are dragging this out. So last week, Rey finally got something back on Dom by making him fall through the ropes. And then this week, Rey kind of got to say a little bit of his piece of what he thinks about the way that Dom's been acting, although they kind of covered it a little bit. We've still got a couple of weeks left till Mania, so it depends just how long they're going to draw this out for before they confirm the match. Are they going to take it all the way through to the Hall of Fame ceremony on Friday Night SmackDown, the day before WrestleMania Night 1? Are they going to take it that far? Is Rey going to be getting inducted, and then Dom just shows so much disrespect with his mum there, with his sister there, with the whole family there? Is that what's going to push Rey over the edge? We'll see, but it's good to see that we're actually getting some progression out of it. And then it was funny later on. I'm skipping over a bit of the linear, a bit of the narrative here, but backstage, Rey and LA Knight come face to face, and LA Knight, with his arrogance, with his cockiness, he thinks that he's speaking on Rey's level, and he says, hey, look, I'd do exactly the same thing. But he gets the ire of Rey Mysterio. Rey hits him and knocks LA Knight down. LA Knight is really confused because he doesn't get the fact that he's a douche. So in true LA Knight style. So it was a good promo. It set up Rey Mysterio versus LA Knight match for next week's SmackDown. But yeah, so finally got some more progression. They're really taking the time with it, but it's good. the crowd still hate Dom, still love Ray, so the pops are still there, and this is building to something really exciting for Mania, absolutely. So then we have another break, and then we come back to Wade and Michael Cole, who announced that there are going to be 2 showcase matches at WrestleMania. 2 brand new showcase matches, which are going to be fatal 4-way tag matches, 1 for the men and 1 for the women, and that they're just about to have a qualifier match for the first place in the women's showcase match at WrestleMania. Now, I'm all for trying to get as many wrestlers onto the WrestleMania card as possible. It's WrestleMania. It means a lot to the superstars. They work hard all year round. They all want to be on the card. I get it. And I also get that it's a long show and they need some matches to kind of let out the air in between the really important matches. In between your Edge and Finn Balor and your IC title match and your Roman Reigns and Cody match or your women's title match. I get it. But just like the Battle Royale, this just screams excuse to get wrestlers on the show. Let's not just do a Battle Royale where we can shove in 20 or 30 superstars. Let's have a fatal 4-way tag match. So not just a 4-way with 4 people, but a tag match. Let's get 8 people. Let's find an excuse to get 8 women and 8 men into Mania who wouldn't have been there in the first place, who haven't got a story going in, who there's no buy-in, but maybe the crowd want to see, and maybe we want to reward some superstars with a payday on the grandest stage of them all. So you can see why they're doing it. You can see the logic behind all of it. And so that brought us around to the first qualifying match, which was the random tag team pairing of Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan, 2 superstars from SmackDown that have had really good years. Raquel Rodriguez, that transition from NXT to SmackDown, she's been really good. I think she still has a long way to go. We've only scratched the surface of what she's capable of. I think when she turns heel like she was in NXT, I think she'll go to the next level. She's quite similar to Rhea. She's quite similar. She's a well-built, strong, powerful woman, similar body type. So I think there's a reason why they don't want her to turn heel, because they don't want the confusion with Rhea. WWE are really keen to not have wrestlers appear too common and too alike. So I can see it. And then Liv Morgan, she's had a fantastic year. She went from number 2 to number 29 in the Royal Rumble. She had the SmackDown Women's title a few months ago. She's the only woman to have beaten Ronda Rousey twice. So she's had a great year. So it's right that they do find a way to get her into Mania as well. So it's a little random, but Raquel and Liv tag team, and then they were put up against Tegan Knox and Emma. And it's no surprise, people know Emma, and if you watch NXT, people know Tegan Knox, but their time on the SmackDown roster over the last few months has been very sporadic, has been quite limited, and the crowd were just dead for them. It was just, they chimed with Raquel and with Liv. Obviously, Liv, massive crowd favourite. But the match, it was a good match. Everyone in there, especially Liv, did really, really well. It was a good, tight match. But that crowd was quiet because there is just no buy-in for Tegan and Emma, which doesn't look good. From what I've seen of both of them, they're decent quality wrestlers. But who knows what becomes of them moving forward. They took the place of Jobber in this match, and so it was no surprise that Liv and Raquel won the match quite easily to book their place into WrestleMania. So yeah, a good tight match. A little bit disappointing from the crowd, but it was good, and we've got the right people at Mania. And then comes Charlotte. Charlotte Flair comes out, and she gives her promo, and I said on the last episode that I've had a problem with the Charlotte Flair Rhea Ripley build. There's been something missing for this one and Bianca and Asuka and a few others. There's some that they're doing really, really well. The Bloodline, the Usos, they're doing some stuff. Edge, Finn Balor doing some builds really, really well, and then there's others that are lacking. And for me, the Charlotte Flair, Rhea Ripley has been lacking in the build. They're going to have a phenomenal match. Their match at WrestleMania 3 years ago was one of the matches of the weekend. Nearly stole the whole weekend in possibly one of the toughest conditions, a WrestleMania in the PC Center with the Performance Center with no crowd, and yet they nearly stole the show. They were fantastic. So with a live crowd, a stadium of 80,000 people, I know their match is going to be fantastic. At the minute, it's been touted to main event night one, which for me works on a number of levels. It'll be a great match, and women's world title main event in one of the nights makes perfect sense to me. I know some people on the internet, on social, don't agree. They think it should be something else, which we might get to later on. But yeah, the feud it's just not been there. There's been a disconnect until this week, until Rhea came out to confront Charlotte, and they had a bit of backwards and forwards, and we got a semblance of a hook. We got a semblance of a narrative, of a story. Finally, we got reason and motivation more than just the winner of the Royal Rumble making a challenge. We actually got some motivation from Rhea Ripley, which was fantastic, where she basically says, look, I walk around both locker rooms and everybody is scared of me. Everybody looks away from me, apart from you, Charlotte, and that pisses me off. And I want to be a star the way that you're a star, which means I've got to be the champion. And that's it. That's the narrative hook. She wants to be a star, so she wants to be champion. She has to be a star, so she has to be champion, so she has to beat Charlotte Flair. Great. We waited till there's 2 weeks to go, but finally we have a hook. Finally we have something. And then I said this on the last episode, finally they brawl. Finally they get their hands on each other and they fight. It bubbles over and it gets physical. And it's possibly one of the best. We've seen this kind of brawl before. It's a pre-pay-per-view brawl where they don't have a fully sanctioned match, but they're really angry with each other, so they fight, and the officials and the referees come down to pull them apart. And we see this often where they hate each other so much, they push away from the officials and they kind of keep going towards each other, have a bit of more of a hit, and then the officials pull them apart again, and then kind of they go backwards and forwards on that a couple of times. And it's something WWE do it quite often. This one, though, for me, works really, really well because Charlotte and Rhea, they just brought a little spice to it. For some reason, they were able to knock out the referees and the officials. They were allowed to do that. Oftentimes, if that happens, WWE make a big deal of it, and it's a suspension, and the superstar is gone from TV for a couple of weeks, and it's a big ordeal. No, this time, Rhea and Charlotte just hitting referees, hitting officials in the face, left, right, and centre. But eventually they did get separated, managed to get Rhea behind the barricade, Charlotte in the ring, holding up the SmackDown title, incensing Rhea even more. So she was desperately trying to get over the barricade, but she was being held back. And the visual for this was really, really good. If you can see it on YouTube, this will make the promo package before their match pop. The promo packages that WWE put together are always fantastic. They always are incredibly well edited, and the footage from this brawl and the end of the brawl, where Charlotte and Rhea were staring off at each other, was really, really good. And yeah, it did what it was supposed to do. It moved their feud forward. It got me excited for their match on another level, and it was some good TV as well. So yeah, really, really, really good piece of TV. Well done, creative at WWE. But then, as I said earlier, SmackDown is a wrestling show, so we probably should have some matches as well as some promos. So it was good to see that LA Knight came out for a match against Xavier Wood. And again, I said on the last episode that the match from last week with LA Knight and Cody Rhodes, it was a good match, but it looked like LA Knight needed more matches. He needed more matches under his belt. His recent program with Bray Wyatt was promo heavy, So it'd be good to get him some more matches. So it was really good to see LA Knight out there and fighting Xavier Woods, who is fantastic, really solid, great competitor, king of the ring last year. And it was a good match. It did well. But then Woods won with the backwards, which it's a schoolboy pin finish, and it's his finisher. Like, who in creative? Because that's just, for me, it's such a slap in the face when you're told, all right, so you're going to fight Xavier Woods and you're going to lose to his finisher. Go, oh, so what is it? Is it some big, impressive, something that's really impactful that I can do a great job selling? No, it's a roll-up. It's a schoolboy inside cradle of sorts, called the backwards. So it makes me smile that's his finisher. It feels a little disrespectful. And yeah, he won. Xavier used his finisher on LA Knight, and it was a bit of a surprise because LA Knight has been getting over massively with the crowd over the last few weeks. Lots of chants from the crowd. Social media love him. Lots of commentators and influencers and whatnot are raving about LA Knight. Lots of people saying that he should get the next big push. So it was surprising to see him lose again. So he lost to Bray Wyatt. He lost to Cody Rhodes. He's now lost to Xavier Woods. He's got this match with Rey Mysterio next week. Is he going to lose that as well? So it's strange that this guy that has got so over with the crowd is losing all the time. But if you remember, Austin Theory also went through a good few months of losing all of the time and being made to look like an idiot. And now he's the US champion that is undefeated in a good few months, and he's having a WrestleMania match against John Cena. So maybe, just maybe, although it's disappointing that LA Knight keeps losing, maybe, just maybe, there's a method in the madness. Maybe we're going to see him lose a bit to kind of pay his dues. He's still getting over with the fans. So if he's getting over the fans whilst he's losing, imagine what's going to happen when he does get his push and he does start winning. So that was, it was a good match, and I'm excited to see what they do with LA Knight. And then after that, it was time for the Intercontinental title match, #1 contender, between Drew McIntyre and Sheamus. Now, I personally think the end to the qualifier match last week on SmackDown with the double pin was enough to set up the triple threat with Gunther at WrestleMania. It's been long rumoured that this is what they were going to do. It looks like this is what they've been building to. And for me, that was enough. So when they extended it to have another match with Drew and Sheamus, it felt like they just were eking it out a little bit for another week in the run-up to Mania. But you know what? I don't blame them, because they've got to fill, they've got to fill 5 hours of TV every week, between pay-per-views, and there's been 6 weeks between Elimination Chamber and WrestleMania. So that's a lot of TV to fill, and you could do a lot worse than Drew McIntyre versus Sheamus. And honestly, they didn't disappoint. It was a fantastic match. Some really good near falls. It was really hard hitting. Interesting that they both tried the beats of the Bowery on the ropes and both reversed it. So there were some really good touches, really good near falls, as I said. And they did a really good job, because these guys have known each other for years. They've been friends. They've fought so many times. They've got great chemistry together. They did a really good job of essentially fighting to a draw. Of essentially neither one of them could get the upper hand. Neither one of them could show that they were particularly better than the other. They're both really strong. They're both former world champions. They both deserve a title shot. And to the point where right at the end of the match, they hit a simultaneous Claymore and Bro kick. Drew with the Claymore and Sheamus with the Bro kick. Simultaneous to knock them both out. And the referee started the 10 count. Now, what I've forgotten to mention is that Gunther, as they want to call him, and Imperium were ringside for the match, watching on. And at this point, with them both going down for the 10 count, Gunther, for some reason, was upset about this. because he wants a definitive number one contender. He doesn't want a draw. He doesn't. So he came into the ring and he distracted them whilst Imperium came up behind both Drew and Sheamus and attacked them, which made the ref call the bell for the disqualification anyway. So it was a bit confusing. If he didn't want a draw, why would he do a joint disqualification? The logic there loses me a little bit. And then, as you can probably expect, with Gunther and Imperium walking to the back, Adam Pearce, I love Adam Pearce. He's great. He needs his own t-shirt. He needs a "It's Official" t-shirt or something. There's got to be some merch in there somewhere. Adam Pearce appears on the screen and he makes it official. He makes a triple threat for the IC title at WrestleMania. Gunther, Drew, and Sheamus. And my word, that could steal the whole weekend. That, even if the storyline is with the Bloodline and with Roman and Cody and with KO and Sami and the Usos, even if we've got Edge and Finn Balor in a Hell in a Cell, I'm telling you right now, Gunther versus Drew versus Sheamus could steal the whole effing show, because those three guys are fantastic. That match at Clash of the Castle last year, Sheamus and Gunther, I was in the arena. That was such a good match. And Drew and Sheamus are very similar. They're both hard hitting, just like Gunther. So the three of them, this could be match of the year. This could steal the whole weekend. So this is going to be really, really exciting. But then finally, as we come to the end of SmackDown, as we come to the last 10 minutes, finally we have Jey Uso. Jey Uso comes out by himself. Jimmy's not there. So Jey Uso comes out and he calls out Sami. He wants to have his word with Sami Zayn. He wants to speak his piece and explain what happened. Why did he turn on him on Raw? And so Sami comes out, and Sami's already said in a backstage segment, he has to deal with whatever the consequences are, whatever he's done. And so Jey comes out and says, look, I've got a job to do, but I need to say my piece first. And it is a really, really good promo from Jey. And if you haven't watched on YouTube, WWE, they often put up full matches from past pay-per-views or playlists that kind of give a little bit of a recap of certain key bits of storyline. And this week they put up a entire complete story of the Bloodline from start to finish. It's a 2-hour playlist and it's really, really good. And I genuinely, because it's been going for 2.5 years, I genuinely forgot where it started. Obviously it started with Roman coming back at SummerSlam and whatnot, but building the Bloodline and his story with Jey and with Jimmy and how he brought them into the Bloodline and how abusive he was and how much Jey and Jimmy fought against it. You definitely need to go and watch that playlist recap on YouTube and then watch this promo again. So even if you've seen this promo, watch the first 20 minutes, 30 minutes of that recap and then watch this again. And it hits so much harder. The way that Jey is talking about not having a choice, the way that he's talking about, I called you brother, I let my guard down, I never do that, you embarrass me. Just knowing what Jey's story arc has been for the last 2.5 years, with the abusive relationship with Roman, with the fights that he had with Roman, the I Quit match, just some of the finishes, the finish of the I Quit match where Roman puts Jimmy in the guillotine to force Jey to say I quit to save Jimmy. There's such deep, rich storytelling and character work here, and it all came through in this promo with Jey. It was a fantastic promo. But the great thing is Sami was there to step up as well. And so as Jey was saying, I don't have a choice, Sami came in and said, yes, you do. You do have a choice. The only problem is I love the family, but I had a choice. I wasn't going to stand for Roman's abuse anymore. And to be honest, I think you're just jealous that you didn't hit Roman with a chair first. And it dawns on Jey. You can see it dawn on his face. It's fantastic. There's so much of wrestling that is corny and over the top and pantomime, and a lot of the acting can be really, really bad. But the bloodline and Jay and Jimmy and Sami and Roman, the acting here has been really, really good from these guys. I think having the bloodline start in the Thunderdome era with no crowds, just it set them up just for this subtle, layered approach to the promos and the whole storyline, and it's just been fantastic. And you can see it hit with Jay, but Jay's made his choice. He has. It's family. It's Jay. He's chosen his brother Jimmy. That's what he said on Raw. And so Jay attacks Sami, and then Jimmy comes in, and they're both beating down Sami. But then, imagine the pop when Kevin Owens' music hits. Yes, that's right. Kevin Owens' music hits. We thought he'd lift the arena. We'd seen him drive off in his car. But no, when Sami needs him the most, his music hits. And Jay and Jimmy, they're distracted. They're looking up at the stage. And as they're distracted, KO comes in through the crowd, comes up behind them, and takes out both Jay and Jimmy. Gives them stunners, gives them pop-up power bombs, chases them off. And as the Usos leave the ring and are going up the ramp, licking their wounds, you've got KO and you've got Sami in the ring. And you've got the crowd chanting, "Hug it out, hug it out." And everybody's wondering, are we finally going to see it? After all these weeks and all these months, all this speculation, all this expectation, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, are we finally going to see them come together? And I tell you, when Kevin Owens walked across that ring and gave Sami a hug, the crowd went nuts. And it was just fantastic. That pop was brilliant. It's paying off so much story, so much history. There's so much just between KO and Sami, from their history of a personal friendship, from their rivalries and their face and heel turns for the last 6-7 years through NXT, etc. There's so much built in. Then you've got the bloodline element. There's so much stuff. It was so good, and the pop was so big. But then obviously WWE need to try and transfer some of that pop, some of that lightning in a bottle over to Cody. So of course Cody was the one who would introduce them at the start and brought them into the ring to try and bring them together. So of course, when KO and Sami are hugging, cut away to Cody, who's watching on a monitor, and he's smiling and he's happy and he's pleased with himself, because WWE are desperate for us to love Cody for being the one to get him and Sami together. Even though we knew it was always going to happen. They were always going to forgive each other. They were always going to get back on the same page. It was always going to happen. But, you know, we need to try and give some of the love to Cody to make him the number one babyface. So yeah, we cut away to Cody, and then we come back to KO and Sami standing in the ring facing off against Jimmy and Jay as they stand on the ramp. And then the show goes off. The show goes off the air. And it's a great end to a great episode. And the bloodline story is just delivering, just show after show. So you had Jay's turn, and now you've had KO joining with Sami. Roman is going to be on Raw. I suspect we might get a 3-on-3 tag match. We might get a Cody, Sami, and KO versus a Roman and the Usos, and with Solo Sikoa in the corner, who is potentially the numbers difference. I think we might see that. If we don't see that on Raw, I think we'll definitely see that at some point before Mania. And it'll be exciting to see Cody and Roman finally kind of get their hands on each other. But yeah, so a really good episode of SmackDown. Really important, moving key characters and key stories forward, heading into Mania with 2 weeks to go. So yeah, really enjoyed this week, and what a finish. And there you go. That's episode 2 in the can. Thank you for sticking with us. If you're still here, thank you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear interactions, ask questions. So you can find us on both TikTok and on Twitter with the same handle at Imagine the Pop. It'd be great to engage with you. I really hope you've enjoyed this recap of SmackDown and the news and the music and everything we've had. I'll be back in a few days' time after we've had Monday Night Raw. We've seen what Roman's going to do. We've seen what Logan Paul's going to do. Hopefully it's going to be good. But as I did last time, and as I'm going to do with every show, I'm going to leave you with this particular thought. Imagine the pop when Jimmy and Jay turn on Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. I'm not saying that's what's going to cost him the title, but imagine the pop when Jimmy and Jay finally, after 2.5 years of abuse and toxic relationship, honestly, just recap, watch that playlist on YouTube of the Bloodline story and just see just how nasty Roman was the first 6 months of this thing to Jay and Jimmy. Honestly, imagine the pop when Jimmy and Jay turn on Roman at WrestleMania. It's going to be something special. Thanks again for listening, guys. Take care.